Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Mind Heist. And today we have a special episode with Coach Zubair. Welcome, Coach.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Ro, for having me.
So give me how you describe yourself. You know, you call yourself Coach Zubair, but I know you do more than that. So what's your background? Where are you from? What do you get up to?
Sure. Thank you, mashallah. Okay, so right off the bat, so for coaching or overall my social media / community work, the way
How do you define yourself, you know, when you meet someone?
Yeah, so I would say I'm on a mission to help people become stronger believers, right? Referring to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "Al-mu'min al-qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if." Right? A strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a weak one. So that's the underlying theme here. Now, specifically in those areas, the areas that I'm focusing on right now, or in the last few years, have been, first of all, valuing your time and utilizing your time properly, right? Whatever it means to you, and that obviously shifts into different areas for you. How do you get there? And then the second thing is, how do you become a better Muslim wherever you are, right? Wherever you are in your journey. So including from non-Muslim to someone actually accepting Islam to then actually practicing Islam. So all that sort of theme comes in there. Part of that has been some sort of relationship management, relationship development, especially once people have gotten married. And so I've dealt with a lot of coaching and counseling issues, especially through the masjid. So these are the three areas. And then the fourthly is, how do we make Quran more beloved to us, right? How do we start understanding in the Arabic language? How do I start benefiting and be able to reflect and take away from it, what's important to me in my personal life? And then finally, there's a philanthropy side. So how do we become smart donors, right? So many people are like, just giving, and part of that is like giving, but I don't think many people give it smartly. People are not either savvy enough, or they're not using resources to be savvy donors. People are usually relatively savvier when it comes to investment and growth, but when it comes to donation, I think there's an area that can be tapped into.
Okay, I want to ask you about that later, definitely. I need your tips on that. Okay. And of course, you're based in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And born and raised there?
No, so I was born in Pakistan, Karachi. Moved here, right after high school. Went to U of T here, University of Toronto.
Okay.
Did a degree in computer science. Started working as a software developers. Started my master's degree, but then realized that I don't need it per se, like based on my goals. So kind of stopped that and just worked for different companies. I started with IBM, worked for Microsoft, and Dell SecureWorks, and done a few startup companies as well. Currently with a relatively new company, but it's quite major in the field of cybersecurity. It's called CrowdStrike.
Okay, mashallah. So how was it moving to Canada at that age? That's quite a late age, right?
Yes, I mean, there was a lot of changes. I mean, I think the move helped define a lot of things. It was exposure to a lot of new ideas, whether it be from a religious perspective. I mean, there's always a learning path, right? But I mean, I would say like even my religious growth and exposure, happened a lot within Canada, just because you're being exposed to a lot of different things and being challenged about a lot of, beliefs and values that you may have just been grown up as being a cultural Muslim, if you will.
So would you say, like, what was your upbringing like in Pakistan? Was it quite a religious upbringing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like a religious upbringing from a practice side. So, but I mean, I would like, you would pray, you would miss a few prayers occasionally, you would just chill out, what have you. You don't necessarily understand what you are saying, in prayers and what have you. Not really having a very solid foundation, but I would say like not being below average as well. So I would say an average Muslim family, or slightly above average as well. A lot of my part of my family is also involved in Tabligh, so that's like one of form of the Dawa that they're doing, and they have been doing like again, not from a very educational perspective, but basic Dawa, right, calling people to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there was definitely this element. Growing up, had all types of friends, and a lot of them also then later on got involved with Tabligh and whatnot. And yeah, so I would say it was fairly above average.
Alhamdulillah. So in the podcast we talk so much, like too much, about like hijrah and like moving to Muslim countries and stuff. And I think the world opened up a lot more in that sense recently, right? Like you were just talking about your brother working remotely and all that. what's your observation and opinion on like Pakistan versus Canada when it comes to your religion, you know, your personal practice and Iman? Like, you know, obviously the world has changed a lot since you moved to Canada, but what's your perspective on that?
Yes. So I think, so firstly, like, you know, I definitely avoid absolute answers, right? And this is really important for people to think about, like, you know, because what may work for me may not work for you or someone else, right? So that's really important to think. So I think there is obviously some pros and cons, right? So the benefit here, depending on, you know, again, these are all means, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses who he chooses. So, you know, for some people, it could be, you know, putting in this situation that where religion is being challenged and you have people that are like non-practicing or non-Muslims or what have you, that can give a boost or zeal to other people. And okay, I want to understand my religion. I want to dig deep into it.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's another benefit potentially. You can choose your friends, right? You can choose who you're hanging out with potentially. Obviously, if you're in Pakistan or, you know, where your parents come from, let's say, then you do have a lot of relatives and friends that kind of come with that. And, you know, it's not trivial to kind of detach it. There's the customs of the family, which may or may not be like, you know, very religious. So it may be a challenge from that perspective. However, you know, there are many benefits of the Muslim countries, right, in general, right? I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that. You made the move. For me, personally speaking, based on my current, you know, family structure and my current involvement, Allahu Alam, it makes sense for me to be more productive and more valuable here. That's what it seems like. So I'm here. My parents are here. My brother, as I mentioned to you, he did move to UAE recently. A lot of my friends are moving to either Turkey or UAE or other places.
So you feel like you can have a serious contribution in Canada. I understand that from a contribution point of view. What about for your personal worship? I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the way my structure is, first of all, like, you know, I work for, you know, traditional American corporations. However, it's all remote, right? So I'm not as exposed to a lot of, you know, side things that may come up with work that, you know, the after hours or what have you. So I have a lot of protection from that perspective. Second thing is, like, you know, alhamdulillah, so I live like 4 minutes away from the masjid, right? So, you know, which are some of the things that are easier to do in a Muslim country and not as easy to do in a Western country because you don't have a lot of mosques in every place. So I have a pretty big center here, Abu Huraira Center. So not only you have a place to pray, but you have an active center, which is like 4 or 5 minutes away from you. So, you know, at a personal level as well, like the way I have my life going on, alhamdulillah, is the environment is very religious friendly. Now it's just a matter of my own self-discipline and work, right? But the environment is there.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. So your environment is conducive to even your personal worship and stuff. Was that designed? Like, I want to live near Abu Huraira Center. I want this. I want to be like this. I want to work remotely.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Yes. So, I mean, remotely, yes. I mean, I do like see like there's pros and cons of remote work as well. But yes, in general, like overall, you know, yes, it was designed. Definitely, the living place is designed. Alhamdulillah, we have been the several places that we have moved in Canada. We have tried to be close to it. I think that's a good investment to have, right? I mean, obviously, I was talking to someone else. Imagine if you're able to have a business deal. One is giving you a $500 return, and the other one is giving you, I don't know, $100,000 or $50,000 return. Wouldn't you try to go for those customers that give you the big wins? And, you know, I think we, even practicing Muslims or people who are active in the social media, we tend to kind of look down upon these basic things. Or why do we have so many massages and this and that? But obviously there's a wisdom, there's a hikmah behind it, right? For you to try to have your life that you have more exposure to masajid and be able to pray in the jama'ah and what have you. Even from the basic hasanat perspective, that's like 10x, 27x returns, right? So why not?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I remember when I was moving to London to study there, one of my criteria for a place to stay, I mean, it's already difficult to find a place in London, right? In terms of, if you rent your own place, you're going to pay a lot. If you're sharing, then you're mostly like, obviously it's mostly non-Muslims to share with. You don't really always want to do that. And it's difficult, right? But one criteria I had was, I want to live near a masjid. I want to live near a masjid. I want to live near a masjid. And I feel like because of that criteria, Allah made it easy for me. Allah found me like the best place. I was living with another Muslim. It was a good sized apartment, even good price. And it was like, I think like what you're saying is 4 minutes walk to masjid, and it was like a solid masjid, mashallah, very nice. So that actually turned out to be how do you say it, solace for me, you know, because that was very difficult year for me. My studies were very hardcore, and so I could always turn, like I come home from work and I could always turn to that masjid to give me that peace, yani. And I remember there was one lesson that the sheikh would deliver after Maghrib on a weekday. It was going through, was it Sahih Bukhari? I don't think it was Sahih Bukhari. I think it was another book of hadith, and he was just going through it one hadith at a time, and it just was, it just, how do you say it? It just cooled my heart, yani, from all the stress. So I'm not even talking about a financial investment, because somehow Allah just gave it to me and it was cheap. But because that was my criteria in the first place, maybe that's why Allah facilitated that to me. So alhamdulillah. So tell me, Zubair, about, because I heard about Abu Huraira Center. I think the way I heard about it was, you know, Mufti Munir, or Muhammad ibn Munir. I don't even know what his real name is, but everyone calls him Mufti, right? So
that's part of his name, or I think some sort of nickname was given to him. Yes.
So I've seen that he delivered some talks over there, and that's how I heard about it. I also heard about, I mean, other du'at and different speakers have been going over there. So I heard about it from different people. But could you like describe it for me? Like, is it like the main center in Toronto? Like, what's the deal and what's going on over there?
Yeah, mashallah. So it's one of the relatively quite big centers, mashallah. May Allah bless the brothers. I think they've been around like 10 or 12 years, if I'm not mistaken, right? So obviously they started with a small space, then they expanded, and so on and so forth. It's been really educational focused, right? Especially way more in the past than now, so right. So they have been really focused on education, the Dawa, the authentic knowledge, and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of people of knowledge, you know, the du'as, student of knowledge, coming and giving talks, like, you know, as you mentioned. And obviously that has had an impact in a lot of people to be, you know, go and seek knowledge and whatnot. So the center, mashallah, has been involved with that. And so that's been one of the main things. Now, mashallah, they've expanded. They have a, you know, Islamic school that they're operating. They recently, like when I say recently, 4 years ago, they bought. So the center is actually surrounded by two churches. Was surrounded by two churches. So this is a center. Then on the right you had a Jamaican church, and then on the left you have a Korean church. So alhamdulillah, like 4 years ago they bought the Jamaican church. So that's now the main masjid, and the older building is mostly used for the schools and whatnot. So yeah, it's very knowledge focused, different activities going on there. So, and you know, one of the major ones. So if people look up, because sometimes, you know, people would come asking about Islam and what have you. I'm like, okay, how did you find out? They're like, yeah, we're just looking at Google reviews and things like that. So that's also helps, right? I mean, you would never know, like, you know, just an attendee leaving a Google review apparently helps out, right?
Wow, subhanallah. So it's a masjid, it's got a school as well. What else are the, like, is there any other parts of it?
Yeah, so they have a school, they have like a gym, like a basketball gym. People can play soccer in there as well. You know, pool table tennis, stuff like that. Then they have like Quran classes. They have a really big tahfiz program. One of the brothers there is also involved in like international Quran competitions. So he kind of is part of that. So we have held like Quran competitions here as well. Some of the students from here, they also participate. I think they also facilitate, obviously there's like a Dawa component to it, like people who are interested in becoming Muslim or asking about it or visiting the center and whatnot, or in the new Muslims and whatnot. They also facilitate a program which I have seen to be very beneficial, which is I think a collaboration with some center in Kuwait. So they would send some students for like 4 or 6 months there, where they can actually learn the deen of the Arabic and what have you. Obviously a lot of attendees have gone to, you know, to various Islamic universities, including a lot in Saudi as well.
MashaAllah. Yeah, that's like, well, I've heard of these kind of centers in America before, where it's like, yeah, they got the basketball court, they got like a lot more to it than just the prayer area, right? And what I understand is that's like one of the ways they try and attract the youth, right? But I want to dive into that element, right? Because I said I wanted to talk about how do you. I know there's a lot of focus on, okay, elder people, maybe people that immigrated from the Muslim world, they're kind of a bit grounded. They're more, they have their traditions that kind of, they're just grounded in that, and that's the way they grew up, and they don't question it too much. But then the youth, there's a lot of questions and doubts sometimes. So it's like, oh, how do we stop the youth from going astray and all of that? So, I mean, firstly, what's your role in the masjid exactly? You mentioned mediation, I think, but what else do you do?
Yeah, so my main thing is basically any work that's related to someone who is not a Muslim yet, right?
Okay,
so
okay.
either directly coming to the masjid by themselves,
Yeah.
or they are coming, via a friend or community member and whatnot. And that's one of the things I've been really emphasizing a lot. Like, look, guys, if you have like 1,000 people coming to the masjid, what have you, and I'm saying, okay, look, we can start and initiate one conversation a week. If that's too much, let's start one conversation a month. So I think in my experience, that goes a long way, much longer way than just like the traditional street Dawa, which is also valuable. But I think if we start having conversations in our network, that's really valuable. So some people would do that from one way or the other. They would bring in, and then we would continue those conversations. Help person understand and see the reality of Islam, the truth of Islam, take the shahada. And then it's just like a big, long journey after shahada, which is, many people don't understand, and I'd definitely like to talk about it as well. So that's one area of focus, basically from non-Muslim to Muslim to new Muslim. Another thing that people don't, I'm sure it's obvious, but and there are many people who are actually born and raised in a Muslim family, but they didn't pray. They didn't learn how to pray. They were not praying. They didn't understand the deen. And they also need some sort of a system or program to kind of refresh and restart. So in our program, we consider them as new Muslim as well from a programming perspective. So new Muslim or renewed Muslim. And we would give them the same option, the same guidelines that we would give to a new Muslim. So that is one big component. I also do understanding Quran classes there. So where basically we go into like directly Quranic Arabic, as well as reflecting on Quran not from an academic perspective, but even if you think about self-help or self-development content, how does this ayah or this verse or this page helps me, right? How do I become better, stronger, looking at that? So these are the two things. In the past, like before COVID, I've had just helped out the imam put a system, because obviously that's one of the things. If people are having a problem, typically what would happen is, can I call you? Can you call me? Right? That's not something that you can scale. Call you for what, right? So what's going on? So I kind of put in a system for that to help manage and triage those requests, which are, you can put them in a bigger counseling bucket. So sometimes it would be parents worried about their youth, right? About their kids or youth, what have you. And then sometimes it's just like, a wife being upset or husband being upset about, with their marriage. So these would be the two main criteria. And then sometimes it's like a fake issue, for example, like, okay, what do I do in this situation? So help make some system and some not automation systems around it, where you have templates and things like that, based on what people need. You can kind of help them with,
like a triage.
So triaging system, self-help system, because there's a lot of FAQs of same things that people are asking, right? And whatnot. And some people, they just want to be heard, right? They just want someone to talk to, which may not be something that many massages are able to facilitate, right? So. And that was one of the reasons that I kind of started going with Coach, right? That look, if we are getting together, if we are meeting, then there's a purpose behind it, right? There's a target, there's a goal that we want to achieve, right? We want to solve the problem, not just here to talk, which is important. Therapy is important, but I'm not providing therapy. I'm not providing, a listening or counseling service or what have you. We are working towards as a coach, whether it be, someone being a new Muslim. So we still have that mentality of being a coach, right? I'm not necessarily a teacher, but a coach for you to get from point A to point B, right? So as part of that, we did a lot of marriage counseling as well. But right now, I think there's a lot of people who are doing that. So what I typically do now is, obviously I've prepared a lot of FAQs, right, for common questions that are asked, and then I pass them on to them, and then I would give them a list of counselors or coaches that are actually focused on marriage, right? And okay, you know what, you can talk to them and have like a lot of follow-ups and make that happen. Interestingly, you mentioned, so Mufti Muhammad Munir, by the way, let me throw it. So he has a channel that I actually helped with as well, slightly. It's called Mufti QA.
Yeah.
So obviously during his visits and whatnot, in my connection with him, I worked with him on a series of a lot of common questions. So people have like, okay, what happens if my husband says talaq, or, is 3 counted or not, this and that, like a whole lot of common marriage-related FAQs. So we have compiled like a playlist that's available on Mufti QA, for example, and I just like send it to them like, boom, that should cover all the questions that you have. And if you want to solve your marriage, if you're committed to it, boom, you can go ahead and get a proper appointment, have a coach that will work for you. If we can continue a bit on that, and then we can probably wrap up on the marriage topic. So one thing that I realized when I was doing a lot of marriage counseling is once people get, married, they kind of start taking it for granted, right? It's just like any other relationship, right? So you're running your own business, or I'm working for, let's say, a corporation. We would have our check-ins with our manager, right? What's going on? What's on your mind? What's not working? What you're unhappy about? Where is this relationship going, right? What do you want from this job? Are you happy? Not all that stuff, right? I think that's something that we miss from a marriage perspective, and that just like keeps adding up. And then by the time you get to a counselor or a coach or whatever, there's a lot of baggage now that you need to deal with. I think had people interrupted and intercepted earlier, people can avoid a lot of problems. So one thing that I really advocate for is to have a time, like a weekly time or bi-weekly, whatever you want, just between the couples, and people can do check-ins and then just hear how the other person is feeling, right? And then it's different for different people. Some people, for example, if respect is important, have a conversation, like put it as part of the agenda, what have you. How much respected are you feeling, right? On a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, well, what that's how you feel, right? So, obviously separating your facts from observations. So what observations are making you feel that way, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that the wife or the husband don't respect you. How much loved are you feeling, right? What are the 2 top things I can do or stop doing that would help, increase that number? Have that conversation, keep a tab on it. It's really important, right? Obviously, for the whole family structure, we know it's a priority for Shaitan to break the marriage and whatnot. And just understanding what people value and whatnot. Other thing I've also realized, again, just based on the sample data that I have seen, is sometimes a wife she may not have an avenue for her to relax and unwind. So sometimes, for example, some brothers will be like, okay, I'm going to go to work, but then I'm going to come home, I'm going to get my escape, I'm going to go hang out with my boys, but I'm not providing you that opportunity, right? So you are like kind of locked in. Right. So you I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to arrange a babysitter or my mom or your mom or whatever. You have to deal with this. And she doesn't have any, way to outlet for her to relax or unwind or be productive and whatnot. And the last thing that I have observed, which is a snowball effect. So sometimes my wife would realize that, look, I'm not getting enough out of this relationship. I need to start, if she's a stay-at-home mother, for example, I need to now go and find work. Now, if she starts working now, obviously she has now even lesser time than what she had before, right? So it just like adds on to the problem. So these are the 3 common things that I've seen that if people address that, I think that can really be a big win, inshallah.
So the 3 things being what 3?
One is, being committed to the relationship.
Okay.
Right. So having a conversation, measuring it. So keeping a separate time where you would talk about it.
Yeah. Check-ins.
So this also, check-ins, right? But I mean, you can take it further. So let's say, you're with your wife, she does something that you don't like. If there's a check-in time and you are relatively disciplined, you don't have to bring it up and, interrupt her at that spot in front of the kids and what have you. And because that would just like escalate. You're angry, she's not listening to you, you're not listening to her. Boom, clash it, right? You say all nasty stuff. But, hey, okay, I'm going to have an observation about it, talk about it in your weekly same time, right? So that's like a check-in / understanding conflicts, understanding feelings. That's one. The second thing is have some time where you can do some activity together, right? So something that you both enjoy. Again, it could be weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever, like a date night or whatever that works for you. And everyone is different, right? You need to understand your needs and you need to be able to communicate those needs. The thirdly, I think, me time for husband and me time for the wife, right? The wife can have her me time where she can, be with her friends and what have you.
Absolutely.
So that's the main thing, right? And like just not fighting at the spot.
It sounds like, have you read that book, Nonviolent Communication?
No, not that. But I'm sure there are a lot of similar ideas that may have been communicated in different ways. Yeah.
Because that book, I find it really good. It's a little bit, I think a lot of people would find it robotic in terms of the formula that it recommends. But I think it's really, the way you go about it, you can soften it, you can make it less robotic. But the core idea of openly communicating your feeling. Yeah. And like you said, separating the feeling from the fact. Be like, look, I'm not saying you're disrespecting me, but I feel disrespected, right? And then like what you said about, okay, what can I do? You feel unloved. What can I do to make you feel loved? Like these kind of things sound very actually simple, but maybe not that well known. I don't know. And I guess it's like what you're saying. People think once they're married and it's done, right?
Yeah.
And just how at work you have check-ins, like this makes sense. Well, but when you said weekly, I thought that's a lot. I was thinking like quarterly maybe, but even weekly, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, quarterly is too long. I mean, I think whatever
Really?
works for people. I think weekly is probably, I mean, like it doesn't have to be long, right? I mean, if everything is fine, that will be a quick check-in. But if there are problems, then you would need longer, right? So, I mean, and typically like even at work, I mean, like you have like a weekly team meeting, for example, right? And then you have one-on-ones with your manager or supervisor, whoever you're reporting to. So I think, and again, if things are fine, it could be a quick check-in. You can use this time to just hang out and chill, right? If there's nothing to talk about. But then this kind of gives you a good cadence that people cannot run away from. And if something happens during the week, they know that, look, you know what, I will be heard. I don't necessarily have to make a big deal out of it today.
For sure.
But if quarterly is for sure way long, man. Like,
really?
Things can just go. I think, like if, you can do every other week, but I think with every other week, it's easier to miss because then it's not a routine. It's like, let's do it, right?
And I guess you could even you could link it to something nice as well. Like you could, I don't know, eat something, get some dessert or something at the same time as when you're doing that. So you associate it with something good, right?
Yeah. But yes, and I think it also depends. So sometimes so if you are just doing it from a preventive, healthy means, obviously it's going to be
maintenance.
Different. Right? Yes, it's maintenance, it's growth. But then sometimes it's also like, a response side. And obviously then you may have to invest way more. So like, for example, when people are actually talking to me as a couple, now it's more of a response phase. It's not growth. It's like, okay, how do we prevent further damage and start rebuilding?
Then there's no ice cream at that point then.
Not a bad idea, right? But I mean, so in that scenario, I would say, look, you can have two separate sessions, right? One is like that date night or that ice cream night or dessert night, what have you, where you will not talk about problems.
Okay.
Right. So so even if there are things that are on your mind, and I think that's what happens, right? So like, why is the husband, for example, going out and hanging with his friends and not being at home? Because even if he were to spend time with his wife, or vice versa, they're probably going to talk about the stuff that's on their mind. But if you're hanging out with your friends, you're probably not talking about things that you're worried about. Even, for example, as business partners, you may be it may be a social night and you may not talk about, revenues or customers and what have you. So it's a block time, we're not talking about any issues, no kids. Let's just have fun. Like let's for example, right? And then we'll have a separate one for actual seeing where we are going as a family, what's working, what's not working.
Yeah. You mentioned about the stay-at-home moms, they're not having their own time. I've thought about this, I basically had a bit of a paradigm shift about this. The fact that I think a few decades ago, the family setup, I feel, has changed a lot. When people are moving out of their family towns, villages, cities, and they're more isolated, right? So it's like, instead of living with your parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, you're now just you and your spouse and your kids, and you don't have any other family. Then you don't have anyone that's going to take care of the kids other than like the mother, let's say. The mother is like 24/7 looking after the kids. The only way to escape that is if you get a babysitter, which you might not even be comfortable with, or you might not be able to afford much or whatever. And I feel like that one fact of having no family around you that you can rely on and they can like help like pitch in, that one thing changes family dynamics a lot. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there are multiple things to it. One of them is that, right, you don't have trusted people that can help you do that, right? So now you need to figure out how I'm going to do it, and then you have to just own that problem and work out. So if you don't have family, can you have other friends or other parents that you can kind of have an agreement with, that what, can you take care of my kids for that one night and I'll do the same for you, or vice versa. Or have a group of four parents, whatever, right? So by just owning that problem, there are other elements to it as well, by the way, right? I mean, sometimes with this, and again, everybody needs to analyze first. So first thing is like to put focus into this, that me as a father, as a husband or mother, or as a wife, it's my focus. I need to preserve it and grow it. So once you have that focus as part of your target, then obviously people will find the thing. But if it's like, you know what, that's my least priority, it's just like, we'll just work out, then it's not going to change. So other stuff is like, you know, some brothers would be like, okay, you know what, I want to be financially free and what have you. And then they start this thing, okay, you have a 9 to 5 and then you have a 5 to 9 life and what have you. Now you're adding a way more stress in your life, especially in your late 20s or early 30s and what have you. And those are your key years as a father, especially, you know, from a traditional perspective, if you have a younger child at that point and whatnot. So it may be a decision of like, you know, maybe I need to step back in that, or maybe sports, maybe whatever it is, people need to kind of like, you know, figure that out and step up to it.
Yeah, I guess a lot of things, when you just give them priority and importance, then you start to find solutions. But, you know, just not giving it priority, nothing's going to come to mind, I guess.
Yeah,
you know,
that just reminded me of something. Like even something like, you know, some people are like a lot in volunteering, as an example, right? Whether it be sisters or brothers, and it's like, and for whatever reason, like, you know, obviously we say, oh, I'm working for the sake of Allah and whatnot. But obviously there are hidden things. Obviously you get more appreciation when you volunteer in the community than if you were to spend those 4 hours as a dad or as a mom, right?
Yeah.
However, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that time is more important.
Yeah.
But we need the balance there as well. Like sometimes it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm a good dad, but that may not necessarily mean that you need to be out every weekend or, you know, every month and what have you. But that's something that people need to decide as well. Because again, a lot of this is going to be the balance, right? And there's no absolute. So you may be spending too much time with the family or way little time with the family, right? You got to figure that balance out.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are questioning the model and their role in general, right? They're questioning their role in society, in their family. And because even like where you're from, Pakistan, I'm guessing there isn't so much a monoculture anymore where everyone is very much living the same lifestyle with the same kind of culture and norms. People are kind of making up their culture as they see fit. And the good thing about that, I guess, is flexibility. But the bad thing about that is you're kind of just doing trial and error sometimes, and you might be maybe making mistakes with that. So I guess a way, if you are going to be kind of reinventing your culture and your role, at least try and bring it back to the Quran and Sunnah in terms of informing yourself of what's to be prioritized, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So I think definitely, so that has to be there. But obviously, I think in human relationship, right, obviously as marriage as well, there's a lot of leeway, right? That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, right? Live with them with ma'ruf is what's acceptable.
Very general, yeah.
So yes. And I think it's really important that to have that balance. Because I've seen like some brothers, they will start quoting the example of the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat, and I'm like, bro, are you so for your wife you want them to be like that, right? But then are you living that sort of life, right? So it's like, you know, so you have to figure out the women that you have married, and obviously a lot of this has to happen before marriage as well, so you find the right partner. But then all of a sudden, if you want that, you know what, she you know, one meal a day is good enough, and you know, one dress or whatever, right? So you have to figure out what's going to work for you and your family. But I think I think one way to think about it is, look, it's a family unit, right? Like a business unit or whatever you want to call it. And I want to bring the best out of my partner, my spouse, and vice versa. And both of us wants to, like, you know, provide our best to our kids, right? If you think of it as a team effort, as a partner, it's not like it's not a competition that, okay, I want to get more, I want to get the shorter end of the stick or the longer end of the stick or what have you. It's not like a competition where you're trying to, like, you know, maximize your wins.
Yeah. You know, just going back to the system that you said you set up with the FAQs and all that, is that like a WhatsApp thing, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so we did a few things. So what I did was, there was an intake form that would ask. So instead of, well, I have a problem I want to talk about, so we had an intake form that would have questions that would, like, break down things for them, right? Okay, what's going on? Like, you know, how respected you're feeling, how loved you're feeling, what have you, right? And then we had a box there that was like, okay, what can he or she do to to change that number, for example, right? What's your top concern? What do you want to get out from the first session and whatnot? So we had this intake form. We also had a contract, like, you know, if you agree, then send this contract to you that I I am committed to commit like an hour a week on this. I can make time for this, and I will work on my relationship stuff like that, and I will do my updates and whatnot. So that's what we had, like a system like that, and then we would send them like a frequently asked questions. So here are the frequently asked question. Here are some recommended books on like communication and whatnot. And then we'll set up a meeting and have a conversation, understand what's going on. But what I realized, that people were not really committed. Many people were not really committed. Right, so they just want to they're just feeling pain or emotionally pain, and then they just want to talk it out. But then either one of the spouses is not committed, or both are not committed to actually putting time and effort into this. So that's why so I'm like, okay, maybe it's like a free service from the masjid. Maybe people are not serious enough. So now I'm like, okay, I give you this system. If you work on it by yourself, you can do it. If you want some extra help, then you gotta go for some of the paid counselors or therapists and what have you.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I've noticed as well in like coaching and business and stuff. Like, it's almost like the more you pay, the more you're going to benefit, because the more like committed and serious you are about it, it's a shame, because there are always going to be people who simply can't afford. But I don't know, maybe you can set up not scholarships, but you know what I mean, like
sponsorship or
sponsorship, yeah, for that. Interesting. Have you seen this GPT chat?
Nope. Tell me about it.
So GPT-3, the language model or whatever AI language model that OpenAI produced.
It may have come across it, but I haven't looked into it.
Okay, so it's like next level AI. It can write paragraphs, blog posts, marketing copy for you. Yeah, you give it a prompt, it will write it, and it will write it very well.
Yeah. I think I saw in the feed, this ad was written by a robot for you, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that kind of thing. So that's GPT-3. The same company that created that, they just released GPT Chat, and it's an AI chat which really understands deep levels of understanding. So, maybe you can in the future create something with that, with your software background. And then that could be not so much for, counseling, but just for triaging people and sending people to the right direction and stuff. I guess this stuff is it's definitely going to become mainstream, in the next few years.
For sure.
What about, the Muslims, non-Muslims who are interested? What are they? So when they're coming to you, are you like the designated non-Muslim, guy? They go to you, they're sent to you. It sounds like that's your thing. Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah. So I would either people would know me, directly approach me, or they would approach the administration, what have you. I'll get an email or a WhatsApp message, ideally. And obviously, I try to keep training people. Let's not get to a call, because sometimes it's just a lot of not a proper use of time. I have a friend that is interested in knowing about Islam, right? So that call for me was not necessary, right? So if you send me a WhatsApp message, then I can use my system. I can send you a pre-compiled message. Yeah, that's fantastic. Here's a playlist of common things about Islam. Let me know what days work for your friend to come in and visit. I don't necessarily need to get to on a call with you to then talk to your friend. I know that we've done it several times. Here's the common FAQs. Tell me when he can come in, when she can come in, boom, right? And then what I do now is, obviously we have to scale. So I have a group of brothers and sisters who are interested. So if a brother is coming and they're open to it, I would probably post it in the group. I'm meeting a brother at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Anyone wants to join in and shadow and learn from that, right? Hands-on. Or vice versa. If it's a sister, we'll do the same thing.
And do you do it inside the center? Like if someone's coming to speak to you? Yeah,
so most of the time it's the center. Obviously we do Zoom as well if needed, outside the center in a coffee shop, whatever. Whatever works, right? And then we also have we just recently did a training, so it's also available on YouTube, so anybody can kind of go through the training. It gives you that, okay, how do you start a conversation with your friends, your community members, your colleagues, your neighbors, whatever, right? So you start a conversation, you start having that dialogue, you occasionally bring them to the masjid or what have you, and then we can also help you with the follow-ups. So that's one of the key things, especially for people in the West or people who are connected with a lot of non-Muslims. How can you, first of all, if the person is willing to listen to you, are you able to explain Islam? And explaining Islam does not mean answering all the questions. Just be able to tell the story of Islam, the major components of it, what it is, the story of Adam alayhi salam, why are we here, our understanding of the different prophets and stuff like that. and then leave it to them for them to research, right? At the very least, if we can just communicate the clear message of Islam, I think we will have like a lot of big wins.
And
then
what
you
would
can
you
get
say?
involved other people.
What would you say is the top like 1-2 questions that they have?
So people like, I think people are not thinking enough, like, traditionally, if the person hasn't thought about it, they will just start with like, oh, why can't you, drink alcohol, or why can't you, whatever, like, pork, or, marriage, 4 wives, and things like that, right? If it's a very common person, right? But I think, so you want to obviously take that and then give them the story of Adam. I think it's really rarely used in the Dawa field. The story of Adam alayhi salam is our story, right? It answers pretty much everything that we are talking about today. The question of evil was first asked by angels. We are the one that are worshiping you and glorifying you. You will create someone that will, cause corruption and bloodshed on earth. Bang on, right? So that was the first thing that was asked, right?
Yeah.
The notion of, obedience, right? The notion of rationalization and justification that I know better. I'm not going to prostrate to him because I know better. And you can come up with any sort of pseudo rationalization. Yeah. And then the notion of, having boundaries, right? That as a respect and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stay away from this tree. No reason given. Is that high cholesterol? Is that non-keto diet?
Yeah.
What's the issue here? No, it's because everything is open, right? Then the next thing is, even in our lives, there's so much halal available, but shaitan takes our attention to the haram. That's what he did with them as well, right? Just keep focusing on that tree. Well, there's thousands of other trees, other fruits. No, just keep focusing on that. And then you fall into it. What do you do about it? Now we have the same issue with Muslims. They have 2 options, right? Either they did what Adam alayhi salam and our mother did, that, okay, we are sorry, we wronged ourselves, we shouldn't have done this, please forgive us. Or they go on the rationalization path. This didn't mean, when it came in the Quran that way. Now hijab doesn't mean that way. It was like for that time, for that purpose. Now alcohol and these drugs are like really, very well done. You don't need to have that blah, 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 blah. Just rationalization or pseudo rationalization sort of thing.
I didn't think about that, actually, that story of Adam. It's like it answers the question as well, which I think is natural, is where do we come from, right? And it answers that as well, right?
Yeah, you can. So that's where I start with, like, and then you have the free will element to it.
Yeah.
Right. So you can talk about the free will. You can talk about the 2 wills of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one is that it will happen. You don't have a choice. You're going to die. What have you, when, why, how, right? What you have a choice is your free will that Allah does not impose on you. So, you could be choosing to listen to this podcast, or you could be choosing to listen to a music or Netflix or what have you. That's a choice you had, right? You can choose to listen to Quran, so on and so forth. So that's when you have a choice, then you're accountable. If you don't have a choice, or you don't have knowledge or ability, then you're not accountable. Simple thing, right? So that's a lot of things people get confused with free will, or do I have a choice or not? So a lot of straightforward stuff can then, basically come out of that.
So like those questions you mentioned that you said less, how do you say it? The common questions that come from people, maybe they're not that serious. They may be, but that's, they may be, but that's just like, they have to say something that they might just say stuff. Yeah, that's like maybe the way they open the conversation, but that's not truly their question, right? It's like they need to know that maybe story of Adam. And then once they understand that, all these questions around what, like marriage and alcohol and this and that, it's like less important, right?
Right. Yes. So I think, so that's my approach, right? If we were to talk about so my thing is, if you are able to communicate to anyone the story of Adam alayhi salam and who is Allah, I think that's a big win, right? That's really, really a big win. You help them understand, who is Allah. And I think even in life, it's more about the who, not about the why. So anything that you do in life, right? So you may have, like, for example, a marriage or, investment. Then you might be saying, what? Oh, Elon invested in this. Right? Or, Warren Buffett has this strategy. Now, you may not even understand the nitty-gritty details of that strategy, but you are putting an authority that, hey, this is what Warren does. This is what Elon does, right? So you're talking about the who, not about the why. You may have like some basic understanding of why and whatnot, but, if I were to have a debate with you, you wouldn't be. And the second thing is, in today's time, any major topic, you have a full polarization. You have people on one end and you have the people on the other end, and they can just write books on that topic, whether it be parenting, whether it be marriage, whether it be whatever, right? So the why debate is not an ending debate. So if you understand who is Allah, right, and then that's what the message is, that look, this is a big mindset. Why are we here? So if people think that we're not here as a resort or a banquet that Allah has thrown. This is a training and development place. So you will be tested, you will be tried. And then the second thing is understanding the ownership. So we, I'm not using this example these days. If I'm traveling and I say, you know what, here's my car, you can use it for a month. I'm traveling, so it's just parked. You can use it for your family, whatever. And then I come back, I take the car from you. First of all, you will be happy to give the car back to me, and hopefully you'd appreciate that you had a free month, right? As opposed to complaining about it. And B, if you're a nice, grateful person, you wouldn't get my car into an accident and what have you. Now, the issue, what we're not understanding is this life that we have is not my life. It's not my eyes. These are not my ears. This is what Allah has given me to see what I can do with it. Right? If you're in the investment world, if someone comes and invests in your business, you raise seed funding, angel investment, whatever, it's investors' money and you're accountable for it. And the better you do with it, the more the investor will give you, right? And this is similar to, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, but وَلَئِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you're grateful, I'll give you more. So if you have that mindset, that look, it's not my body, it's not, so Allah can dictate and tell me what I should drink, what I should not drink, when I should drink, when I shouldn't drink. And obviously religion is not very tight. It gives you some boundaries and then you have a lot of flexibility. So that is a big shift in the mindset, that it's not what I feel like, but am I grateful to my creator or not? And his orders are not random. It's not that he's just, flexing or showing you his authority. He is giving you something that will benefit you and benefit, the society. And if you have that mindset, then it's a whole different thing. Like one last quick example here, like if you're busy at work or assignments or school and you want to take a coffee break, when you take a coffee break, it's actually going to make you more productive, right? You don't think that, coffee breaks is taking my time out, right? So why do we have this feeling about the coffee breaks, but we don't think the same way when we say, okay, I'm going to take a salah break? Right? So it's a mindset like this, right? So you kind of give them this basic explanation of what Islam is. And and then I think continuing on, when someone takes shahada, I think that's a big mistake that we are doing here as a community, right? What does it mean to take shahada? So what we think generally, people who don't think deeper, which is one of the things that I'm trying to, hopefully change and help, think deeply, ask questions, be critical, be analytical. It's not like the time of the Makkah that the Sahaba would take shahada and they're 100% committed to it. That's not what's happening today, especially in the West. Okay, people do it to try it out, to just check it out, right? Now, recently I posted on my Instagram a post from Andrew Tate, and everybody got some people got really upset about it.
I saw that yesterday, actually, yeah.
Yes. But I mean, I had a few points. Maybe we'll just use that and I'll clip it out and then answer those people if they really want to learn. Why did I make that post? So there are a few things. One is, and this is something hopefully we can talk about next, is wasting your time, right? How much time people talk about just talking about other people and not fixing their own life. The second thing is, so people are saying, he said this before his conversion. Okay? What I'm trying to share is first of all, I'm not saying look, I don't know how I'm going to die. I don't know how he's.
But wait, Zubair, can you just explain what the post was about first?
Yeah, sure. So Andrew had a clip with guys from Full Send where he asked him point blank, "What is your religion?" Okay, so he mentioned something like, "Look, when I'm in Dubai, I'm happy to be a Muslim. When I'm in Romania, I'm happy to be a Christian." Okay. So, but I want to have God in my life. I want to be godly. I think religion has its place, whatnot. Okay. So that was his mindset at some point in time. I don't know if that mindset has changed or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Neither do the people who are commenting, "Oh, that was before his conversion." I don't think they know either. And the point is that not to judge him. As I said, today he could be a better Muslim than me. Yeah. And when we die, he could definitely be a better Muslim than me. I don't know, right? I'm not saying this post is not to judge Andrew Tate. It's to show you that what you think about conversion when you are commenting, "Oh, that is before his conversion," may not be what the other person is thinking. Right? For some people, okay, you know what? Now people oh, let me try an Arab dress. right? I'm going to wear this Arab thobe. No problem, right? Some people just try out things. And he is clearly telling you that this is his mentality. The reason for my post was, number one, be careful about your time. Like, some people have wasted or spent hours and hours just talking about Andrew Tate. That's point number one. Point number two is don't be naive. When people actually take the Shahada, they may not have the same understanding of Shahada as you. And I'm not saying this to judge people. I'm saying this to you so that if you care about Dawa, you will work differently. Okay, so you as an e-business or e-marketing guru, right? If you understand that, look, I come to you and I'm like, hey, you know what, bro? I have 100,000 subscriber or 1 mil subscriber. You understand that's just the part of the funnel, right? That's not something that I should be measuring, because subscriber does not mean views. View does not mean retention. Retention does not mean purchase.
Yes.
Right. So you understand it's a funnel. But in the Dawa field, many of us are very naive. We think that Shahada is the purchase. It was at some point in the Sirah, in Meccan period, it was. But in Medinan period, you had hypocrites. So
because in Mecca, it was very difficult.
Exactly.
It was a big commitment to become Muslim, because when you become Muslim, things are going to get tough for you. Right?
Exactly. So that's my point, that, okay, if you care about Dawa, don't give up. Continue the Dawa after the Shahada. And that's what Rasulullah instructed Mu'adh, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, radiallahu anh, that invite them to Tawheed, but then invite them to Salah. Most of us are like, yeah, Muslim, all your sins are forgiven.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a conditional statement. It's not that you say Shahada and your sins are forgiven, right? And then you pack your bags and you think, that's it, let me move on to the new guy or new girl, right? But the person is not praying. Then if he doesn't practice Islam, are his sins forgiven? Is he even a Muslim? So I'm not judging Andrew Tate or anybody. I'm just saying that if you are in Dawa, you need to think, don't say it was before his conversion. The conversion may not have happened. I don't know. Right? Because just saying Shahada does not mean that person has converted. So we have to work on that. The third thing that can come out of, so that was second thing. The third thing that can come out of this is, may Allah protect us, is if you give him or anybody too much platform, what happens if 1 year from now he starts talking bad about Islam, or he starts going into Christianity, right? So that is something that happened with the Jews, for example, right? Aminu billadhi unzila alladhina amanu wajhan nahari waqfuru akhirahu. Or something similar to that, right? That believe in them in the morning and then disbelieve in the evening, right? And that was something that was obviously for naive common people. They're like, oh, okay, Tate is saying this, now Tate is saying that, So that was some of the reason that I posted that, right? But the point was that not everybody was able to see through, and that's just that just shows and even though I hope that it was very clearly in the description, and now hopefully we'll clip this out and then it will be in the video. So I don't think I can make any simpler than that.
Yeah. It's just a case study. That's what you're trying to say. It's not necessarily that it applies to Andrew Tate, but anyone who says their Shahada, they need further strengthening, education, and they need to be made to feel welcome and supported, right? Because maybe you can talk a bit on this, but when you become Muslim, sometimes you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family, you're going to lose your support network. Maybe, I talked about the way Andrew Tate made his money, maybe he needs to cut off a whole big source of his income, right? That's a big sacrifice. So people need support to go through such a big change. And if they don't get it, well then, they might really struggle with the duties of a Muslim, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So I think, so if you want to go into, I have a full training on this as well, New Muslim Mentor training, that people can see on my channel as well as many other organizations as well. So it's very simple, right? So I think the first thing I say is, look, first of all, realize that it's not a win. You have to work with them, okay? So it takes time. The second thing is, the first thing, try to have a meeting with them and explain to them what Islam is. Right? Because and I have recorded this was obviously one example. I have many recordings on my channel. There's a full playlist of first conversation in which I ask, okay, so why have you become Muslim? And many times you would see that they don't understand the difference. Oh, I was with Christians, but then I found some Muslim friends, so you can see that and it's good, right? But they're coming in because of friends or what have you. They don't not everyone, but a wide majority don't necessarily understand the Tawheed or the Quran and the Sunnah. Some do, but a wide majority don't. So you need to first be mindful of that. Second thing is also be mindful of this victim card, right? That not every Muslim, or I would even say most people who take Shahada, their social and financial life is not being impacted because of Shahada. Right. So sometimes, the challenges of a new Muslim, lack of friends, loneliness, homelessness, things like that. So again, it's a very naive way of thinking. I would ask a second question. Are these problems happening because of Islam, or is just a correlation? So because of that, I'll give you one or two examples actually. So one thing that happened, because I've been talking about this. So one of the community I was training to be new Muslim mentors, they had a brother who took Shahada and he was homeless or being kicked out by his father. So there were some uncles and aunties, may Allah reward them. They said, you know what? Oh, we will just like bring him, let's figure out someone's basement. We'll put them there and we'll share the rent. Brilliant. I kept saying what I just told you, right? 3 weeks down the road, now they are figuring out how to get him out of the house. So his father may be kicking him out because he has drug problems, because he has, he's lazy, doesn't go to work, right? Whatever it could be. So I'm not saying that we don't help them, but if you become naive, he's being kicked out and he's a new Muslim, so he must be being kicked out of because of Islam, right? So that's not what happened. So you need to understand what the problem is so you can give him the proper solution.
Get you.
That's from the social perspective.
Yeah. So you're saying basically that a lot of people, when they say their Shahada, are you saying that they're not all necessarily, they're saying the Shahada, they understand exactly the repercussions of that in their life. They're cutting off their drinking straight away. They're cutting off their friends who are like smoking, and they're not doing that, most of them. That's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and they shouldn't. I mean, that's totally understandable.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So if I were to use an analogy, it's like people on the January, right? If you look at the gym membership in January, it's probably the highest.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Good analogy.
So that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And that's fine. And we welcome that and we are happy about that. So if you understand it from that perspective, now you have to take that interest and help them see the value of Islam. Okay. Now, if another analogy I'm using is that, look, we have to remove the mindset of support. So we have been saying new Muslim support for ages. It's not new Muslim support. Support mentality is, hey, I buy a software from you, I buy a product from you, it's not working, let me give you a call, and then maybe you can walk me through and troubleshoot. That's support, and that's what people do. I used to give, hey, here, this is a new Muslim, this is your contact, right? How's it going? Yeah, he hasn't contacted me, everything is fine.
Exactly.
That's a support mentality. Okay. Now let me give you a success mentality. So obviously all of us has these cloud apps, right? Uber Eats, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, right? Yeah. These guys have a success mentality and probably teams that are dedicated to it, customer success team.
Yes.
And what they do is they say, hey, you know what? Ameen joined LinkedIn. You have 10 views on LinkedIn. You have a post that's getting popularity on Facebook or whatever. So they give you these things so you can come back to the platform.
Yes.
Right? With a $10 discount. Right? Because they understand that you downloading the app doesn't mean anything. If you don't use the app, you will delete the app. Yeah. So you need to understand that we have a success. How do you make the person successful with Islam? So absolutely, that's the mentality change that needs to happen. So what people do is they give you a gift box. I have many stories about gift box. We just got a message from a sister yesterday. So I have these 2 stories that I will actually utilize to hopefully give that. So one of the brother, he was given the box and left at it, right? He married non-Muslims after that. There was no salah, nothing, right? Alhamdulillah, via YouTube, he saw one of our videos, he got in touch with us. And what I'm also saying is that, look, his end was going to be what it is today. I'm happy that me and my team were part of it. So now this brother, he has performed his Hajj. He prays the Hajj regularly. He fasts Mondays and Thursdays. He has made Hijrah to Bursa. Right? So, mashallah, really amazing brother, right? But the point being that, he was given a box and left alone. But alhamdulillah, when we got to him, then you work with him. The sister's story, she messaged me yesterday. I think she has converted like 4 years or 3 years, something like that. So, and she was also given books. Okay. Now, she has been introduced to our team like 8 months ago, like in Ramadan timeframe, but she has now started learning Salah. 8 months, brother. Okay. So what our methodology is, few things. One is, you first of all explain Islam to them, and then we have 4 components. Don't rush into just teaching them Salah and Wudu. Work on their motivation. Okay, how do you work on the motivation? First thing is environment, as we talked about earlier, right? If they can surround with more Muslim friends, that will help them. The second thing is obviously the content, right? If they can subscribe to some social media, which is like basic content, right? So I use like Muslim Mastery, One Path Network, Mufti Mang, I don't know, like just basic Yaqeen Academy as well. Just basic, simple content that will keep them at least reminded about Allah and motivate them. So you work on that, and then if they can come to a weekly meeting with the convert coach, so we call them actually New Muslim Success Coach or Convert Coach, and then you actually either read Quran together, do reflections on that, or read Riyadus Salihin. Let them read Riyadus Salihin chapter of Salah. When it talks about the rewards and the punishment, it will inshallah motivate them, help them learn about Allah. So work on their motivation, and then slowly work on the technicalities, right? The wudu, the details of it. And then third thing is have them have a goal. Right? So the goal would be like, okay, I'm going to pray. So look, we're not changing religion or anything, but we understand that one prayer is better than zero. Okay. So if you need to do that to get to 5, that's your choice. What do you want to do? 1 prayer, 2 prayers, 3 prayers, and Friday prayers, and so on and so forth. And then you keep working on with them. So this, for example, this sister, so what we do is like, I have a system, like I do like a weekly check-in with my converts. Like a WhatsApp check-in, if they're coming on the call or not, at least there's a WhatsApp check-in, and hopefully a weekly conversation as well. Some people, if they have progressed well, or if they don't have time, if Islam is not their priority, then we would move to a monthly check-in. Right? That, okay, you know what, maybe it's a good time now. Just keep them motivated. And then people, as a sister's example, like she took 8 months, now she's working with a convert coach. So this thing, like be persistent with them. If weekly is too much, make it monthly. And then also offer them a new coach. So for example, she has now started working with a new coach. And sometimes it's good because of 2 reasons. One is psychologically, she has been saying no to the other sister for too long. But when you give them a new coach, it's like, okay, you know what? It's a good time in my life. I have to make time for it. I don't want to start saying no to this coach, right? And then, and then sometimes it's just like a connection and friendship, like some personalities you may connect better with and whatnot. So that's kind of like it needs work. You can't just say, oh, people have taken Shahada, I'm going to give you a box or a contact information. You can, but you're really wasting your efforts, right? I mean, nobody does that in the business world. You want to work on your funnel, if you will.
Follow up. Yeah,
exactly.
Is a lot of this process, I personally, like, I see a lot of kind of business processes in this. Is that where it came from? Like your knowledge of that? Yeah. So I think these are just the basic things, but obviously the way I'm explaining it is, I'm using using analogies. Exactly. Yeah, but I see it as, I don't know, like my business training and learning and experience has taught me to think in a certain way. And it's very much like systems thinking kind of way, very much like funnels and flowing information and all of that. And so it really resonates with me, but also anything I do, I would apply this to, you know what I mean? So I guess it is quite a business / engineering way of thinking, but ultimately engineering seeks the most efficient way of doing something, doesn't it? So it makes sense to apply it. And I think it's really cool to hear that from you, because I know you come from software engineering background and you're working with converts and you're taking the best practices from that, and you're a smart guy with your head screwed on and you're applying it to this. Whereas which is, I don't know, I just get the impression that sometimes people are volunteering and not bringing the best with them to that volunteering position, if you like. Or maybe they don't have the freedom to bring that kind of knowledge and expertise. So it's really cool to hear that actually and see it in practice.
For sure. Amazing. I think, so some of, if you want to look at it like from an organizational perspective, there are reasons for it, right? So sometimes, there's few reasons for it, actually. So sometimes people are just doing what they enjoy doing. So that could be one. And I'll give you an example. So look, when I work in cybersecurity as an example, there are certain things that you can do that are cool, right? Like a cool hack. But that's just something cool, and I would enjoy doing that. Is that the most effective thing if my objective is to keep my parents and my friends secure? No. The things that will keep people secure are boring things. Don't use your same password at multiple sites, right? Use a 2-factor authentication, right? These are boring things, right? But that's what's important, okay? Now, what happens when someone goes into Dawa, for example, they want to be like, oh, I want to debate like Zakir Naik and I want to have these all arguments and what have you. New Muslim work, to be honest, it's boring. right? You have to be patient. Again, this is the work of the messengers, what have you. It is not exciting. You have to be patient. It takes time and whatnot. So that's one angle, that people go for flashy, exciting stuff, and they're not patient with actual things that would matter. The second thing, at an organizational level, and this is where, kind of connected to what I was saying earlier about a smart donation, the smart donors. At an organization level, or even at a da'i level, sometimes either they might go for flashy things or for shahadahs, and then not the boring, grunt work. And sometimes people would also architect their organizations, either because of the senior management staff or the board members, about what they can sell to the donors.
Yes.
Okay. So what a donor is meant to say. If the donors are not smart, what you can sell to the donors is going to be different than what you can sell to a smart, sophisticated donor.
That makes sense.
And yes, so that's why their priorities or their resource management may not be from a very effective thing. And this happens in the business world as well. So in cybersecurity, so for example, again, the commission of our company is like, we stop breaches. Right. So the idea is like, we want the attackers to not get in your network, and if they do, to get them out as soon as possible, and not wait 6 months, which was what was happening. So now, even in that, now obviously there are many products. How do you measure the products, right? Which one is more effective and whatnot? So some industry organizations, they have come up with metrics, like a test system where you can measure a product. So, we had our all hands like a month ago, and, the senior leadership was talking about it. Look, we hate to compete in those metrics because those are not realistic. They don't really protect customers. They're there, and we hate to do that. We don't want to spend our resources on doing that, but they had to bite the bullet, and they had to do it because that's what, the customers were asking. Well, what is your score in this simulated test environment? So now you have to put engineers to work on that. Obviously, those engineers could be working on real world problems. But the point is so you need to actually be able to show the value, show the results, right? Now, if people are saying, oh, you know what, I have 100,000 shahada, and the donor is like, 100,000 shahada means 100,000 musallis, they don't, right? So it's kind of like that as well. So, it's obviously there's a lack of quality of talent, right? People with high skills may not come to volunteer. Why? It goes back to the earlier thing we talked about, right? Maybe they're spending too much time on fun, or their families, right? They're not sacrificing for the deen, or they don't have, good management or teams to work with. So they may have tried working with, a charity group or nonprofit, and they're like, the systems are like so backward, the efficiency is so low, it takes like so much time to get anything done. I don't want to spend my time on this.
For sure. Yeah. And then a consequence of that might be, for the more motivated people, that, I'll start my own charity then, or my own organization. Then you get splintering of effort.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think that's changing? Like over the last 10 years, has that changed at all?
I would say so, yes. I mean, I think overall you're seeing like obviously a lot more competitive people, competent people that are coming in, so I think it is evolving. It is something, definitely, I think things are overall improving. Right. In general, obviously, there's certain things that we're going down on as well, but in general, I think things are improving. So that's I think what we would call from the new Muslim. Again, for anything, right? Pick a cause and really understand it, right? Just don't be like at the surface level. And how did I get into new Muslim mentoring, by the way? So obviously, I started with, so I think at that time when I started, I was working at IBM. I gave Dawa to some of my colleagues, just like took them for coffee, whatever, just talk to them about what Islam is. We did some street Dawa. We would have a lot of shahadahs on the street Dawa, okay? And then we would call them the next day. They wouldn't pick up our phone. Like, what's going on, right? Now, for me, I'm not getting paid for a street Dawa, right? So hopefully I'm chasing impact, right? And I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is not working. And then I started talking with many other street Dawa teams, and they were not having this problem. You know why? Because they were not calling them back. When the person has taken shadow, they say, go to the masjid, here's a card, here's a book, here's a box, Assalamu alaikum. So they were not even measuring that. So they were not even realizing that. So that's why I got into them, and I started talking to now I've probably a couple of hundred of new Muslims that I've seen in my life so far and whatnot, that I've seen their journey, where they stop, why they stop, and whatnot.
Wow. It's like you need a CRM. You need a CRM for new Muslims.
Wow. Actually, I do. So So basically, you probably heard of HubSpot.
Yeah.
So I actually, so I have a recorded videos on that as well. So I have step-by-step instructions on how you can repurpose HubSpot, because that was free, and make it into new Muslim entries where you can see what their growth is and what their progress is and whatnot. I think Why Islam is another organization I work with. They have a very good. They're actually using Salesforce, so they also have implemented it. But yeah, you actually do, and that's one of the things, right? Whatever charity work you are doing, measure the impact. Right? So measure the impact and also measure the cost efficiency as well. Because sometimes you may have impact, but you took like $1 million to create that impact that could have been done for $10,000, right? So,
For sure.
So I think we need to have both metrics. What's the impact and how it was achieved?
So how do you, in terms of being a savvy donor, like how do I be a savvy donor? Should I just donate to charities that are local to me and therefore I know how they run? Should I like email them and phone them and find out how they run? Like, what do you recommend?
Okay, good. So right now I have two things. I have 2 stories on my Instagram that kind of have collected those tips. So that's a plug for that. But here are what I can recall from that. So first and foremost, like go for impact, right? What are they doing? How are you going to measure impact, right? So instead of just maybe, I don't know, my thing would be like, instead of working with 10, 20, 100 charities, figure out 1 or 2 causes that you are passionate about, understand the impact and how you are actually measuring it, right? So one simple example was, instead of measuring the number of shahadahs, go deeper, right? The second thing is try to understand how they're using their, funds, right?
Yeah.
So you can, for example, so one of the things that's happening, and that's one of my pet peeves. Look, I think, and I may be wrong. I'm just like, trying to understand this, and I may have my own charity and what have you. I'm trying to hopefully get some breakthrough in there. Allahu Alam. We'll see what happens. So what happens as Muslims, I think the Muslim community already has a certain portion of zakat and sadaqah that they do, and that's probably not going to change much, right? So everybody has a specific percentage and what have you. There may be slight ups and downs based on emotion, but relatively speaking, we have so if you measure the Muslim community donations, you kind of know what that is, right? Now, one thing that I think is happening is a lot of that money is going into fundraising. Right? Whether it be paying for YouTube ads or Facebook ads or marketers. I mean, if you're paying a marketer or marketing agency or graphic designer, it's still not as bad that at least you're paying, hopefully, a Muslim company and you're creating employment opportunities on that. Okay. But my question then becomes, let's say if we are spending almost $1 million among Canada and, US and maybe UK as well, or even more on marketing, whose money is this? Is this money that the donor gave as sadaqah, as zakat for that orphan? Like $1 million, was that Muslim community money? And what is that money for? Is that just a competition among charities? So you are also doing fundraising for Pakistan flood. I'm also doing fundraising for Pakistan flood. You're also doing fund for orphans. I'm also doing for orphans. And we're just paying Facebook and YouTube. Okay, so my thing I'm thinking about, and we'll see how that goes, is if you want to do that, then let you pay and let your friends pay for that marketing. Don't make it a compulsory that from every donation you're going to take like 10%, 15%, whatever, and you're going to spend on marketing. So that's one thing. I've seen sometimes board members making a decision that I wouldn't make in my own personal businesses. Maybe they know better. I don't know, right? But because obviously now it's not your money, you're not being measured on that. Donors are not savvy. So then you can just say, oh yeah, I'm going to pay this much to a lawyer. I'm going to pay this much to a marketing agency. Right? I mean, first of all, do you even have the flexibility? So be transparent with the donors, right? So that's another thing. Like, so what is measurement? So I know from a Canadian perspective, we have 3 types of measurements, right? Your program expenses, your fundraising expenses, and your admin expenses. So this is what CRA, the Canadian Charity Association explains. Now, when you and I as common men ask about overhead, and they tell you my overhead is 5%, what does that mean, right? It depends on how transparent the charity is. And I think you cannot be very transparent because everybody else is using a different measuring stick. So let me give you a quick example. Someone may say, okay, if CEO and CFO is the highest paying salary in or VP marketing is the highest paying salary in a charitable organization, they would say, okay, you know what? 33% of this is, marketing or fundraising, and 33% is admin, and 33% is programs. It may not be. What it means is that he is helping recruit people, or she's helping recruit people, and program management and paperwork and all that. So I think people need to be able to see behind the numbers. So these are some of the things that people can do. The other things would be I would say do not click on ads and pay via that, right? Because obviously when you pay via ads, then you are encouraging that behavior, right? Learn the charity, go directly on their website, pay directly.
Okay.
Right now, obviously, I know that many marketing agencies like have a different thing as well. They're like, okay, any donation, we're gonna have a cut of that, even if they come directly to your website. So I don't know what's the solution, but definitely better than not clicking directly on the ads.
Yeah.
I would say. I would probably also avoid fundraisers, right? So when you have fundraising things going on, again, this is just my view. I don't think it's going to be very popular. I would avoid fundraisers because there's a lot of fundraising costs, whether it be banquet, whether it be speakers, things like that. If you understand a charity, try to go and donate as directly as possible to not have your donation tied to those things where other people may be having a cut of it. And then you can also discourage, some of those behaviors. So these are some. Oh, and one more thing, very important thing. Please take tax receipts. Okay, so that's another common myth that people have. Especially, I know it's a bit different in UK because you have charity aid, where if you are not claiming, the charity can claim on your behalf. Now, there's two problems with that. So this problem of charity claiming on your behalf has slight issue that I've seen. So let's say if I donate $100,000, you can probably claim like 30 or 40,000 back from the government as charity aid, gift aid.
Yeah, gift aid.
Now, so I say my 100,000 is for orphans. You claim $40,000, which is coming from my tax money. And I think what many charities may be doing is they're saying, oh, this 40,000 now is I can do whatever I want. I can do it for marketing.
Yes.
But that wasn't my intention. So if you are in UK and you have the ability, I would say you claim that gift aid and then you give that 40,000 to whatever you want to do, as opposed to letting them make a choice. Right. Another thing that sometimes I've seen people saying, oh, use wherever you see most fit. And for some charities, this most fit category, I'm thinking most fit wherever there's more poor people or whatever. They may be thinking most fit is what will help me grow my business. I'm going to use it for marketing. So you have to be.
I never thought of that,
Yeah. So I mean, and again, I'm not saying everyone does that, but why give them a chance? I would also say like avoid cash donation. Make sure that you get like a receipt so everything is tracked, right? The other thing, for example, so in Canada, for example, we don't have gift aid. So either you claim it or you don't. So many people say, I don't want receipt, right? So now if as a community, we are having $1 million or $2 million without receipt, that means we are leaving, $80,000 for the government, right? So we can get almost 40% back from the government. That is from our own tax money. So it's not government's money. So I don't think that I have, Sheikh Joe Farad, he talked about it. I've linked it in that playlist there. The point is that it's not taking away your intention, right? So if you really want to take that money back from the government and then put it back into your charity. But even if you take it back, there's nothing wrong with it because it's not government's money. So you can only take it back if you're giving those things in taxes.
In the first place. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So what are those?
Don't leave that.
You said these are on your story on Instagram, right? What's it called, the story?
Yes, I think so. I'm using a highlight called Smart Giving.
Smart Giving.
And these tips. Yes, I'm putting everything under Smart Giving under that on YouTube as well and all this. So I'm trying to compile that, inshallah.
What came to mind when you were explaining those tips is basically if us as donors were savvy, it would actually change everything. Because so much, like it's like, why do I have to wait till Ramadan to think of giving myself? Or why do I only give zakah and I'm not really giving much sadaqah like on top of that? I should proactively be giving obviously zakah at its right time and just sadaqah like throughout the year firstly, instead of the charities getting it all in Ramadan. But also it's like I need to be giving without needing an ad to remind me or a fundraiser. And once that happens, these charities are going to realize, oh, we don't really need so much marketing activity, right, to get a good amount of donations. And like imagine, I remember, I think it was Sheikh Tawfiq Chowdhury. He was talking about challenge yourself to give 10% of your income, 20% of your income, And this is the type of thing where if you really believe in, obviously it's more, how do you say it? It feels riskier depending on your income level. But this is where really that would like change things completely. Like imagine every Muslim is giving 10%. And some of these personal finance advisors, they tell you like, look, when you get your income, your salary, straight away 10% needs to go to savings. Yeah. Imagine you don't, imagine you got a 10% pay cut. Yeah. Imagine you got a 10% pay cut. You could do the same thing, but you could also do that knowing that your charity, your wealth doesn't decrease from charity, right? Yeah. And that if you give that, you'll get more. And like, wow. So if you lock it in at a very rigid amount, and you could start with 1%, you could start with 5%, whatever it is, then you're doing that for yourself. Inshallah, good intention, may Allah accept it. But then also you're giving to the charity regardless of the marketing campaign, of how cool the video ad was, right? Of how good that speaker at the fundraiser was. You're giving anyway, right? And you don't need these like activities to remind you and stuff. That would be the best case scenario, to be honest. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, so just to add to that, right? So I think like, let's say if you're investing, right? So you're investing for impact, right? So you say, okay, you know what, depending on what you follow, right? You might be investing in real estate or crypto or stocks or what have you. No financial advice here. Don't sue us. So either you have to be, investment savvy, or you're just speculating, or you are trusting someone, right? That is advising you to invest in that. So similarly, you can have similar approaches for donations. And obviously, when you're trusting someone, make sure like, what does it mean? So sometimes Allah Alam, I said, look, I'm going to say a lot of controversial things here, right? So one thing, sometimes you might see like different famous speakers, encouraging you to donate for a charity. Now, they may or may not be endorsing it. I mean, Allah Alam, right? So that's something, for example, not necessarily every speaker would come in and, they're just saying, give, and, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That does not necessarily mean that they understand how the charity operates, how efficient they are, what's their impact, and so on and so forth. They may or may not, right? Just because someone is on someone's ad, it may or may not mean that. So, be smart about that. Maybe we can have some organization that do proper measurement, proper metrics, and they can add value to that. And lastly, obviously there's going to be admin cost. So I think what I'm hopefully, inshallah, going to do is like be open and transparent about it, like fully transparent, not from a legal perspective, because as I said, like in legal terms, you can measure things differently and it can still be valid from a legal, because they give you a lot of flexible ways. But be transparent about it. Let the donors make the choice. If you want fundraising, I would probably raise the fundraising separately from my friends, right? My network who trust in what I do. Or give it open to donor. If you like our work, donate for fundraising, have a checkbox, whatever. And especially if you're doing zakat and whatnot, and if you know that there is some admin work that needs to happen, and if you want to play even more safe, like add 5% to it, right? Because you are responsible for your own zakat, right? To get it to the beneficiary, right? Yeah. If I'm helping you do that and I need to do paperwork and legal work to get you that tax receipt, so benefit from that tax receipt, which is 40%, almost 35 to 40%. But then give me 5 or 6% extra to help me manage my admin so that I can, be compliant with the charity commission or charity CRA or what have you, and be able to give you those donation receipts.
Yeah, even just credit card processing fees is like 3% or whatever. There's a charity, One Ummah, which I like, and I think I just like them because I was recommended to them by people I trust, and they coincidentally, they have a 0% policy when it comes to admin fees or whatever. What's it called? 0%? What do they call it?
Zero admin or something like that.
Yeah. So that's not why I gave, but they say they have that. When you're going to donate, the button, I think just below it says, by the way, about 3% is going to go to credit card fees. So at least they're being transparent with that. But yeah, I guess they could add a tick box to add on top of that and stuff. That makes sense. What do you think about the whole 0% thing? Because some people say that it's not good because you're giving a false idea of what's possible for a charity. They can't run on 0%.
Right. So so absolutely, there's no such thing as zero admin, right? So the money has to come from somewhere, right? So that's something I think, and there are some organizations that are really doing something like that. And I think, there is a value behind it. I think my thing is be transparent, right? But it's also hard to be transparent if you're being competitive, right? Because if not everybody else is being transparent, then your board has to be okay. Because I think some of the people I talk to is like, look, I'm okay with, raising, not being the top charity, but I'm more focused on efficiency, right? So if growth happens. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to cut corners to get the growth. Now, even when you say 0%, like what does it mean, right? So then the question would be like, okay, well, who's paying CEO? Who's paying marketing? Who's paying, program managers who are just evaluating, right? Who's paying for the trips, whatever, right? So sometimes, some UK charities might say, you know what? It's coming from gift aid. I'm not saying it's for one of them. I'm saying this some, right? So if it's coming from gift aid, well, then what's your admin cost, right? Because if it's gift aid, so let's say you are a charity, you collect gift aid and I collect gift aid. You collect, $1 million in gift aid. I also collect $1 million in gift aid. You put, half of that $1 million in marketing, right? And I put like, $250,000 in marketing, but I put like the 75% of that back into the programs, right? That's different. So, I think we need to be transparent because sometimes the donors may lack education. So maybe some charities have to step up and try to be more transparent and show them a lot of behind the scenes, which I hope I'll be able to do. I haven't started yet, but that's one of my intentions that I may be able to do. And then, you kind of create that role model, right? That, okay, this is possible. And whatnot.
I think that there isn't much incentive for them to be transparent because of how unsavvy donors are, right? Unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, they're like, oh, they don't understand. Nobody cares, right? So you're kind of getting away with that.
Yeah.
Right. But then, so that's what that could be a good project, right? For some organizations to educate the donors, right? Or to even measure charities, right? Because again, we have very sophisticated, investment groups or venture capitalists and whatnot, and that's what they do from your investment, right? So we should do the same thing for philanthropy.
Yeah, and sometimes just by seeking to be more efficient, Allah will put more barakah in the whole thing, the whole project,
Right, yeah, and it's just like about being ihsan. Well, there's two things, right? One is, as a donor, it's about, ihsan, right?
Yeah.
So because donors have a lot of impact, right? Especially as a collective, right? For the charitable organization, it's a different ball game actually, because not only it's about like what you mentioned about having more barakah in your work, right? It's a new responsibility that you have taken now, right? So, as an individual, I'm only responsible for my 2.5% of zakat. Now you are responsible as executives, as board of millions of dollars of zakat, right? So, you have now taken this additional responsibility that you're going to be accountable for, first and foremost, right? Regardless of, and many times, some subhanAllah, like I have seen myself, and I'm not, that in board meetings and what have you, like people are thinking about organizations, right? Because even in a traditional corporation sense, your fiducial responsibility is towards the organization, for example, right? But you also have a different responsibility that's when you sign up to be a board member, and that is now between you and Allah, that you are responsible for your donors, right? What you are saying to them,
Yes,
and how you're using their money.
that's heavy.
One of the CEOs that actually said something which I haven't thought about before, and this is from Surah An-Nisa. إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا. Right? Those who eat the money of orphans, right? Wrongly, unjustly, right? That they are eating the fire in their bellies. And that's just something to think about, because people are, if you're claiming it to be for them, and
Yes,
that's a responsibility.
absolutely. Wow. So I want to wrap up with a question about, like, I know you got a full-time job, you do have some flexibility in how you work, but how do you balance that with your volunteering?
Yes, so I don't think I do a very good job at it, but it's I think overall, like alhamdulillah, I think family commitment wise, I have it pretty easy compared to many other people, right? So my family commitment or things that my family require for me, may Allah protect and bless them, is relatively less. So that's an added advantage. A flexible job is an added advantage. So compared to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, like, there's these flexibilities and responsibility, I definitely think I could be doing better. But I think so that's a very important question though. So I'm going to step back, right, and talk about this topic overall, which I wanted to be having. So one of my main things, from a stronger believer perspective, is we have to value our life and our time. Okay. So, from Islamic perspective, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know from the hadith that we'll be asked about these 5 things on the day of judgment: how we spent our life, right? How we spent our youth, how we earned our wealth, and how we spent our wealth. So we talked a bit about that. And then what did we do from the knowledge that we had learned, right? So these things, this is what Allah has given us, right? In a way, if you want to take an example, someone has invested in you. What's your output? So I think it's really, really important that what you're doing. And I'm going to use maybe 2 or 3 analogies here. So one is, if you have an income, right? Let's say you buy a home or what have you, or your dad gives you a home, and then you're saying rent money is your money. Okay, so you're getting a certain amount of money every month, right? Let's say $2,000 or 2,000 pounds or what have you. Now, maybe 2,000 pounds don't seem like much, right? Maybe it's like you have 3 brothers, you're splitting it up, right? So 300 pounds, maybe it doesn't seem like much. So the first learning is that it's not much on a month-to-month basis, but it adds up and it becomes a lot more. Mm-hmm. So that's my first message, is that, look, your day, your hour may not seem like a big deal, but when it adds up, it really becomes huge. Mm-hmm. So, the famous thing that Tony Robbins and many others say, like, you underestimate what you can achieve in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, right? Because you're just focused on today, or what's the big deal? So look at that grand scheme of things. One example that comes to mind, I think Ilmfeed shared that there's some instructor, like a teacher or principal in some state in India, Kashmir, I believe, right? And then he just uses side time to build, a solar powered car, right? So that 2 hours a day or 2 hours a week can add up, and you can do something for your life. So that's one thing. Second thing is realize that, you have done great things in your life. When you learned how to walk, it's not simple. You tried so many times. It took maybe months to learn how to walk. You fall down, you got up, you learned how do you speak. That took like a long time. So if you want to have something good, it will take a longer time. The third thing is, look, if you're getting that 300 pounds or $300 a rent or 1,000, whatever. Now, if I come to him like, hey, you know what? Let's go to Starbucks for coffee in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. After Fajr, let's go to Starbucks. Then we go for Maghrib. Hey, let's go to Starbucks. Okay. If you don't have a plan for those 300 pounds, you would probably start saying yes to me. Right? But if hey, you know what? As you said, 5% is going in charity, or 10% is going in charity, 10% is going in investment, 10% is going on my, e-courses, whatever. Then you said, what am I doing? I can't be giving like 10 pounds or $10 to Starbucks every day. It's adding up. And you would start saying no to me. So obviously I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about time now. So because if you don't have a plan for your time, you go on Instagram, you keep swiping, you keep scrolling or swiping, what have you. And then, it's like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and like 2-3 hours a day, it's on Instagram or Netflix or what have you. So you need to have something that you are planning to do. Like, what are you going to be a champion for? So so what people are doing, they're taking a shortcut, right? So whether it be Tate, right? Whether it be Khabib, whether it be, what do you call it in UK, Hyde Park debates, right? So you're just celebrating other people, even if these things are like, seemingly religious, you're just celebrating other people. The question is, what are you becoming a Khabib of in your field? Pick a field where you can be an above average person, where you can be, the top 5%, you can be a top 10%. Pick that and work on yourself. Like, now it's the FIFA going on, right? People are celebrating and criticizing the teams. And what do you have to do with that team? Like, how did you help that team? Right? Like, you're just celebrating or complaining about other people's success or lack of. What are you doing? Right? And now if you take a look at Khabib's life or any person that you admire, look at how much hard work they have put in. Don't make, like, so right now I have a guy, and I'm going to come back to your question. I think it's all going to tie it up. So I have another brother. He's not Muslim yet. My boxing coach, my Muay Thai coach, just accepted Islam 2 weeks ago. May Allah give him steadfastness. Ameen. So another guy that I work with, he's like 20 years old. Okay. He drives 30 minutes or 40 minutes one way to come to my Muay Thai gym. Okay. He does it in the morning, like early morning before Fajr, right? And then he does it in the evening as well. He's 20 years old, right? Wow. Because he wants to be a fighter. So now, obviously, he's so disciplined. He eats properly. But so, he watches fights and stuff, but he's working on himself, right? He has a target. And like, it's going to take years and years for him to get to one fight and be a professional fighter, right? I'm not talking about is fighting good or not, but I'm just saying that he is committed, right? The same thing goes for, people who are into development or whatever. So the point is, like, what are you going to be a Khabib of in some area of your life? If not a Khabib, then at least be in the first top 10%. And realize two things. It will take work. It will take hard work. You will have to fail or not hit the mark and get up and try better, right? And then the same thing, be consistent with it, and so on and so forth. So that's my one thing. Instead of just being a spectator, either celebrating other people's win or criticizing other people, right? That's what happened with Tate or FIFA, right? That's what people do. Do something, pick an area, 2 areas, whatever, and do something about it. So value your life, make a plan. Now coming back to me, so one thing I realized, I think 10 years ago I would have a lot of self-discipline, right? I think now with being in different projects, I don't have as much self-discipline. There's certain things that I find easier, certain things I don't. So for example, there was a point in time I could just work out at my own home. I had treadmill, I had weights. Right now I have a gym in my building, which is it's 1,000 meters from here in the room that I'm in, right? But I don't go there. So what I have noticed is that it wasn't working for me. So I signed up for these, Muay Thai classes. So I do this 2 times a week, right? So what I'm saying is that the question that you asked me was about balancing. So I was actually finding it hard to balance, and everybody's different. And as your life changes, your discipline will change as well. So I signed up for these 2 classes, right? So as my workout routine. So that's the first thing in the morning. I do 2 days a week. The third day I go with my friends, right, to a gym. We play squash and we do some weights, right? So it's a friend thing. It's a Sunday morning thing. Everybody's committed to it, and we go and we have it. So what I've done is I've changed my environment and accountability. I'm paying for it to make this happen, right? Now, the 4th day, I have intention to go to this gym, which I find very boring. I don't go there, but hopefully I'll get there. But the point is, if that's not happening, then stop complaining and sign up for something that's happening. If gym is boring, start doing something that's fun for you. Okay. The same thing I did was, as I started my gym, and my Quran is also suffering. It's not as much as it used to be. So now I have signed up for 2 classes with a teacher. And nowadays you don't have any excuses, because you can do it online, you can do it on the phone, you can find the best teacher overseas. So there's no excuses, and it's very affordable. So that's some of the things that I've done to have these external commitments to make me more on my toes and to be accountable. So that's one thing. There are other hacks, I try to use Asana and stuff like that. I have a playlist on personal development and planning. I have 2 playlists on my channel. Doing a lot of plugs here. One is on Trello-based planning, and one is on Asana-based planning, where you can actually step back and take a look at different areas of your life. I'm a Trello guy. Yeah. So actually, Muhammad Arshad introduced me to Trello. I like the list view and many other features from Asana. But so either or. So you can use that and then have some goals. And I try to do my own weekly reviews or monthly reviews, where I'm okay, how am I doing with these different areas of my life that I care about? And lastly, also celebrate your wins. Right. So small things like that, small wins, weight loss or performance or productivity. Write down, okay, I did this thing. I took a workshop. I read a book, whatever. So you can see that, and then you can kind of build up on that.
Okay, amazing. I think for everyone listening, I'm going to link to your Instagram so they can go and find these things, and I'm going to go through them as well. And mashallah, the way I think. The way you communicate your ideas is next level, mashallah. I'm really enjoying it. So jazakallah khair for that. And you gave us a good summary of the strong believers concept as well in that, right? Is there anything you want to share before we end, Zubair?
No, I think this is it. This is my key message is yes, content is good. Keep consuming good content. This is very important, right? To instead of consuming garbage content, but figure out what do you want to be in your life. Pick an area or 2, have some goals, and grow. Right? Criticize yourself if you have to, instead of other FIFA teams. See what you are doing, what you want to be in the 5 years. No, it's going to be a long game, deep work, hard work, but then you can make it happen. And obviously, one more thing, very very important, which we didn't talk about, is the importance of dua. Right? If you don't feel like doing anything, if it's hard, ask the one who can make it easy. Right? So let's not forget that as well.
If you can't even get out of bed, then ask Allah to help you get out of bed. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So at the very least, you can do that.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair, Zubair. May Allah keep you steadfast in the good work. And all the converts you're working with, may Allah keep them steadfast, as we discussed. And subhanakallahumma bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. The link to Zubair's Instagram will be in the description. And jazakallah khair for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.